Alright, little update here on the Derp ATV project. Well, the tires are fitted up. Doing a little bit of a leak check right now. So far so good. Just a couple of pinhole leaks, but it wasn't major. It was pretty easy to fix with the welder. Couple things I'm going to go through real quick just to get started. 1640, not really 1640, at least at a lower tire pressure than I'm running at. So you can kind of tell here, I don't know, I got about maybe 3 or 4 inches from the tread bar to the bumper. Technically it should be pretty much level, but I guess if it bulldozes when you're going down into a ditch, it is what it is. But future change, definitely bring that nose in a little bit more so that way you get a better approach angle on the front. There is quite a bit of rustling to do with the lower drivetrain, which I'll get into later. But mounting the tires are kind of a pain in the ass, just at least by yourself, and I don't have a pallet jack, so you kind of have to wrangle them up there, draw them in at least, just to get it started, right? On the front end here, I do have some miscellaneous items done, like the wiper seal here. Really the last thing I got to do, I'm going to duct tape these light mounts right there, so that way water doesn't get in. But the gutters are all done too, which is nice. Works awesome. No water ingress besides obviously through here. Bulb seal added on the door, the front doorway. I did finally get the draw wire. I ended up using one of these little guys, these little clips, because it's just really hard to get it all lined up and then try to get in there and crimp the end. So I use one of these cable clamps here instead. Still got to add a bump stop for the front door. But you can kind of see I got my elbows all mounted up in there. And just fair glimpses of the lower drivetrain. But we'll get to that later. Give you a little overview here. So let's go around. Before we do that, actually, ground clearance is a measly 17 inches, at least with the tire pressure that I'm running. Now, of course, if I'll see what I can do and see what happens if I increase the tire pressure more. But I was kind of figuring on this because of how big my sprockets are, and that kind of dictated how low the belly sat compared to where the wheels are. So, but I have some ideas for that for future builds. Not for the prototype, but so on the rear, same deal here. I have the bulb seal mounted up. And then this, you don't realize how tall this thing is. Now obviously it's not going to sit because I got my air hose going through there, but that's how it's supposed to fit there. Yeah, really nothing major there. Moving on up in here, we'll do a little look-see on the drivetrain, the lower drivetrain, which is basically a chain drive system. Now, what I should have done was just kept with my original idea, which was going to be 2 jack shafts and then your final drive sprockets. So essentially, this pinion would have been pushed towards the center line of the chain box, and then there'd be 2 jack shafts, one on either side. So you have a pinion that goes to a jack shaft, and the jack shaft then goes to your final drive sprocket. And what that allows me to do is eliminate all these tensioners. So here's the rear tensioner, which is an underside tensioner, and it's actually threaded, and it swivels down here. And so as you thread this thing, clockwise or counterclockwise, it moves this up and down. Now on the front end, it's a little bit simpler, but still there's a lot of moving parts and materials and fabrications and assembly. Instead of a threaded nut, it's actually just a plain tube that the threaded rod goes through. So essentially the spring action of the chain will actually push this back as you unwind the screw, and of course as you tighten it down, it'll obviously tighten the chain. So yeah, but still there's quite a bit of moving parts, and I think at the end of the day It's going to be the same cost probably, but a lot easier to assemble. Not to mention too, with the jack shaft concept, I can definitely reduce the size of these sprockets. Not to mention too, I can run an 80 pitch from my pinion to the jack shaft, and then from the jack shaft to the final drive sprocket, I can like run a 100 pitch or something crazy, just to give me that low, low speed, high torque chain drive system. And since the chains, of course, are so short, I can eliminate the tensioners altogether, just like on a motor grader. So that's kind of what I got going on there, at least for future builds. But for this prototype, I'm going to have to work with what I have. So there's going to be kind of a little bit of wrangling. I'm going to open up the, I'm going to move this hole here for the cotter key, so it gives me a little more slop in the system, because this is like all bound up once you start tightening everything down. I mean, you can barely get this thing to move. Got to pretty much cut down these Acme rods here, these threaded rods, because they're kind of sticking out above the chain box, which is a no bueno. Really the only alignment issue I had, which I think I got lucky on this one, but with the jack shaft concept, it's a lot more resilient to assembly. But this bowl sprocket here needs to get moved inwards by like 1/8 of an inch. You can kind of see, I don't know if you can see that, but the yeah, it's just not lined up very well. So that's kind of what I got going on there. So hopefully the next update I'll have all those little kinks worked out. So then this will pretty much be buttoned up, ready to go. One thing to note is I'm not going to be RTVing anything yet, at least for the first test drive. I'm just going to do a first test drive, and then if everything's working out from the chain drive standpoint, I'll go back in, pull the wheel modules off, RTV everything, and then fill it up with, oil for the chains. So I think that's basically about it. Just a lot of little small dinking around stuff. Like I said, I think a jack shaft is the way to go in the future. I'll just make this work for the prototype. I haven't gotten my 1/2-inch plate yet for durability purposes. That's what I really need. And if you guys know of any wheel end module too, because I'm thinking about future builds, I'm just using an accurate MDX wheel end module off the rear side. I was looking at Subarus, I'm just looking for something a little bit shorter in the offset department. This is about 2.5-inch offset from here to the mounting flange. So I'm kind of curious. I was looking at Subarus, they're about 2 inches, so that gives me another 1/2 inch. I'm just looking at something that I can kind of shrink this chain case up a bit, because I want to use as many off-the-shelf parts as possible. I really don't want to go in and, I could build my own shaft, like out of PTO shafting or something, but I really just want to use something I can just, buy for like 20 bucks off of Rock Auto or something and bolt it up. That's really my go-to there. Worst case, yeah, I'll have to build my own, but just trying to, I don't know what you guys' thoughts are. The only thing I could find was maybe like a Subaru or something, but yeah, a driven wheel end module. One thing I was thinking too, I could probably build my own housing and then press fit your standard front end drive hub and bearing in. That could be an idea as well. So yeah, hopefully next update I'll have all these lower kinks worked out, and I really want to get itching on the powerpack system, which would be my engine, transmission, steering system, and yeah, hopefully the surprise will come in the next couple of weeks. I'm kind of changing things up in the steering department, I'll tell you that much, compared to using the accurate MDX. Let's just say there was an opportunity I could not resist. But I'm fairly confident. I think I can get this thing going before winter really hits. Fingers crossed.